how they will reform education. But tonight, it is my job to introduce a man that doesn't promise about reforming education. He has made it his life work to reform education. I would tell you about his superintendent, about how he was the superintendent of multiple public schools, or I could talk about how he started the Black Alliance for Educational Option, or a national organization whose mission is transforming education. Or I could talk about how he founded Marquez Institution for Transformation of Learning, but I won't. I will talk to you about how his commitment to reforming education has impacted my life. Before I met this man, I was a mediocre student. After talking with him, I realized that I have to take my education seriously, and as a result, I have transferred to CEO Leadership Academy and transformed into a scholar. As chairman of the board of CEO Leadership Academy, he could attend monthly meetings and fulfill his obligations. But his commitment to education pushes him to become more involved. He comes to CEO Leadership Academy and talks to the whole student body and makes us want to strive for greatness. He also talks to me one-on-one and shares his passion and experiences, which inspired me to become more involved and active in my own school and education. He lives his commitment to education. It is with great joy and great admiration that I have the honor of introducing to you the man, the mentor, the revolutionary, Dr. Howard Wilson.
You know, it really is my honor to be here tonight and see so many of you friends and new faces. But I have to tell you that the greatest honor that I have, other than being the chair of the Black Alliance for Educational Options, is being the chair of the board of CEO Leadership Academy. We have 163 students, more or less, every day, that Denise, who I love deeply for what she does, takes care of it. And I know you all been on the school visits today, but if any of you all want to play hooky tomorrow for the conference, and you want to come by and see us, just check with Danny. And we're also very fortunate to have my man Patel with us tonight right here. And so I'm glad Patel talked his way into this as he was talking his way into a place. But the job that Denise and her staff does every day with our children is just incredible. I mean, I'm as I've said before, people will often ask me, why do you do this? And I always have a very simple answer, and it's a deeply felt kind of thing in my soul. And that is that I believe that all of our children are precious. I believe that they are our most precious gift. And that it is our responsibility with God's guidance to nurture them, to love them, to care for them, and to make sure that every single one of them is educated. And so, that's why I'm so blessed to be able to do this work every day. Some years ago, Reverend Patrick O'Neill, a pastor of the First Unitarian Universalist Church in Massachusetts, was given a speech, and he cited one of the traditions of the Messiah. I don't know how much you all know about Africa, but the Messiah was one of the most fierce tribes in Africa. They're the ones, when you get the African statues, they're the ones with the carvings on their face. And the Messiah had a traditional greeting that passed amongst them. It was casted in Europe, which means, and how are the children? And this was their way of acknowledging the high value that the Messiah placed on their children's well-being. Even warriors with no children would always give this traditional greeting, and then the answer would be, all the children are well, meaning that peace and safety prevail, and that the priorities of protecting the young and the powerless are in place. What if we adopted this idea in America? What if we required the president and the mayors and all of these pontificating people to get up every day and ask the question, and how are the children? And if that was in fact the thing is, could we in America honestly respond that all of the children are well? The reality of it is, and you know the reality of it is, that if we did, we would be lying. Because all the children are not well in America. Some of the children are well. Those with resources, those with loving and caring parents, those who have adults who believe in them and care for them, and frankly, not even all of them are well. But the children who are definitely not well are those who are victimized every day because they are children of color and they're poor. It is our poorest children of all colors who know hunger, who know what it's like to never see a person in their family go to work. They know what it's like to sit in classrooms day after day with teachers who have, quote, given up on their kind. They suffer every day, and the reality is they will continue to suffer because there is no real urgency in this country to deal with their issues. Oh yeah, we have all of these conferences and all of these speeches, and people go home congratulate themselves for this wonderful workshop that they went to. I mean, we even got people who think that change is discussing change. We have people who think that if you come to a workshop and you get up and talk all of this talk, that you ain't never gonna walk when you go back home, that somehow you've helped.
I hear you.
And what I want to say is, I want to know, where's the anger? See, I'm mad. People say, oh, why are you always so mad? You know, people will quit inviting you to stuff, man. You're always mad. And I just have to fess up. I'm mad. I'm mad about our kids' condition, but what I'm mad about is that we're not mad. That's what I'm mad about. And so, I want to know, when are we really going to seriously say in America that we will refuse to leave any child behind? When are we really going to say that and mean that and feel that and do something about that? And all of us in this room know that our children, our poorest children, have all kinds of issues. But what we're going to talk about tonight is education. And I want you all to be very clear that I believe what Ron Edmonds said when he said that we can, whenever and wherever we choose, educate all children whose schooling is of interest to us. We already know more than we need to know to accomplish that task. Whether or not we do it must finally depend upon how we feel about the fact that we have not done it so far. And so the real issue in this country is not the lack of knowledge. The real issue in this country is the lack of political will to do what has to be done for these other people's children. And so when I get up to talk, I'm mad. And I'm mad because every day I see children suffering. And I see them suffering not because we don't know that they're suffering, not because we don't really know how we could deal with it. They suffer because we don't have the political will to change the institutions that continue not to serve them well. I'm here tonight because I believe that Daniel and Bertel and Aisha and Quita and Alexis, I believe that all of them can learn. I see them every time I go to the school, and I can see that they will never ever get what they need if those of us who say that we care simply talk about fixing the existing system. We have to be very clear that we must have a revolution, that we must have a radical transformation in our thinking and in our practices. Just tinkering around at the edges will never get us to where we need to go in this country. And so when I talk about this, I understand that the most powerful innovations in education must occur in the classrooms between teachers and students. But I believe that we have to create the conditions that allow those things to happen, and that we need to replace our current school systems with systems of learning opportunities which will put the interests of students first, allow dollars to follow students, and hold adults as well as students accountable for academic achievement. It is a crime that the only people who are held responsible for students not learning are the students. The teachers get a raise. Kids don't learn. And we say, oh, they didn't learn? You need more money to help them not learn again next year. Think about how this works. I mean, first of all, poor children, many of whom are children of color, many of them don't do well on various forms of assessment. Their schooling gives them pathways to the lowest rung of America's ladder of success. Their parents are unhappy, uninvolved, and unempowered. Their school environments, physically and mentally, are structured in ways that devalue them as persons and are contemptuous of the communities from which they come. And when they don't learn, they and their parents are blamed. If I hear one more time, even from people who talk about, I'm for choice, blah, blah, but we got to do something about those parents, and I'm feeling it, I understand. Only a fool would say that you wouldn't rather have kids in families with great parents and this and that. But you know what? If all of us have concluded that it is the parents' responsibility to educate the kids, then let's close down these multi-billion-dollar educational institutions and get the money to the parents. Because the reality is, if the parents are supposed to teach us, why are we spending all this money on education? I'm confused. I went to North. Maybe there's a logic there that maybe I missed that class that day. But what I'm trying to say is that to me, that we have these places where it is very clear that whether the school produces or not, it will make no difference in the lives of the adults who are responsible for their learning. In 2006, we still have have kids being told that my check is going to come whether you learn or not. We still have kids being told that I'm got mine, you got to get yours. This is happening in America today. And I want to be really clear. I am not saying that the existing systems of education do not have some excellent people who are doing heroic jobs. What I'm saying is that many of these educators are working in systems that are dysfunctional. Systems that in essence prevent them from realizing their stated goal of educating all of our children. This is a discussion about systems, not a discussion about individuals. And I would say, without any kind of mealy-mouthed, qualifying, weasel words, that one of the things that is critical if we're going to change education in America is parental choice. And I want to be real clear what I mean by that, because this is a term that well-meaning people sometimes misunderstand. And other people distort it purposely because they want to kill it. Because the term is often used only to talk about vouchers. And it's clear that I support vouchers. I support opportunity scholarship, but I support vouchers. The dreaded V word. I support vouchers. But vouchers are only one form of parental choice. What parental choice really means is giving families the capacity to choose from a wide range of learning environments that they feel are best for their children. These options can be public, they can be private, they can operate outside of institutional arrangements. So that means that as the chair of BAIL, our organization supports policy initiatives that provide options for parents and their children. It could be charter schools, public-private partnerships, contract schools, home schools, cyber schools, innovative options within the traditional system. Whatever will empower parents and give kids a chance to be educated. That's what we support. And I know, like I have a young lady here tonight who, her name is Kanika Burks, and I know she'll be mad at me, but she's single. And Kanika is a Bailey Sullivan Fellow at the Institute at Marquette. Bailey and Sullivan Fellow is named after Deidre Bailey and Lisa Sullivan. These were two young women who helped found BAIL and died at a very early age. Deidre was a phenomenal young lawyer. Lisa helped actually form the new generation of leaders that the Rockefeller Foundation had. She formed Listen in DC. Deidre went to the hospital because she had a sinus problem, and they gave her some medicine that completely burned out her entire internal organs. And so Kanika is like a fellow, and every time I talk about some book, she usually write it down. So I hate to always put this on her, but there is this book called Exit, Voice, and Loyalty that Hirschman wrote. And he said he was opposed to vouchers, but then he made an argument for it. Because what he said was that if you are in an organization and you have no capacity to exit, your voice is diminished. But if you're in an organization and you have the capacity to lead and you stay, you will develop a deeper form of loyalty to that organization, because everybody knows that you could leave, but you stay because you're getting something. And so when I was the superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools, I became very clear about something. I was in charge, but I wasn't in control of nothing. And what you also become clear about is that you're standing up there talking about what you're going to do, but everybody organized to protect what they want, no matter what you're talking about. And since they know that the people can't go nowhere, you're just up there talking. But think about what it means when people understand that if you don't treat you right, you can raise up. It's like when I go somewhere and get down into like a church basement, and I'm talking to a lot of parents, and any kind of color parents. But if I just say, hey, tell me how many crazy parents in here, and the hands shoot up before I even define what is a crazy parent. Because a crazy parent instinctively knows that I'm talking about them. I'm talking about the ones who have the audacity to go up to the school. These are the ones who go up there and they want to check on what's happening to their children. You're the ones that when they see you coming, they like board up the doors. They put like weapons on the air conditioning vents, trying to keep you out of the school. And all of us in this room know that if you went up to the school and they knew that if they weren't treating your kids right, that you're going to take your kids, and when the kids leave, the money leaves, there'll be a different discussion. So I want all of us in this room to be clear, the issue in America is not choice. The issue is who got it. Because those of us with money, we already got it. See, when you have money in America, you have choice. I mean, like I was up at I guess they won't mind, but I guess I shouldn't say this, but I was up at the editorial board meeting of a major newspaper in America from one of the largest cities in America on the East Coast. And I was up at the editorial board meeting, and they was like giving it to me about vouchers. And then this one woman, she just, I can't support vouchers because they just don't educate all the kids. And y'all would have been proud of me because like I took a lot of stuff for like about an hour. You know what I'm saying? That was like about 98 minutes past my normal, you know, well, really 50. But it was really like way past. So finally, you know, like I said, look, I mean, hey, first of all, if you got any kids, I know your kids ain't in the school in the South Bronx. And so you up here yapping, you know, but I know your kids are taken care of. And you know what I'm saying is because how can we live in America where you got teachers teaching in schools that they would never put their own children in, but demand that other people's children stay there. And you're going to talk to me about how you can't support vouchers because they don't help all the kids? I belong to the Harriet Tubman School of Thought. And what Harriet Tubman said was I get up every day to end slavery. But in the meantime, I'm going to rescue as many slaves as I can. Who got choice for their children, we're going to tell us that we shouldn't have choice. Y'all should stay in this school where kids ain't learned nothing in 20 years because to let you out would, quote, destroy the system. The question is, who are we supposed to be standing up for? The system or the kids? I'm for the kids. I don't care what a lot tonight about the need to change schools and school systems and change our whole thinking. But before I sit down, I want to say something so that y'all understand like where I'm coming from. Because we have to understand that not only do we have to fight for parental choice, but we need to be very clear about the existence of differential power and access to resources in this society based on race and class. So because the bottom line is children who are hungry cannot learn. Children who are abused and neglected are not going to be able to concentrate in school. Children need to see people in their immediate families working in order to understand the value and the connection of education and work. Children have to see a society where race will not be an impediment to their advancement and respect. Children must interact with adults who have not already reached conclusions about their capabilities because of the color of their skin or the clothes that they wear. And I'm going to tell you something. Although we don't allow, and I had to tell about this today, we don't allow our young brothers to walk around with their pants halfway down. But I have to admit that when I see a young brother with his pants hanging down like that, I see somebody who understands physics. Because there's no other way that they can possibly do this without understanding physics. And to be able to see some of these young dudes like do what, this is a little old because, you know, I'm a Chris Rock man, but there was this other dude before him named Richard Pryor. And Richard Pryor used to talk about, you know, black dudes down like low running. And so it's like really him to see like one of these young brothers low running with his pants hanging down over his legs. There's a skill to that. So you gotta figure out how to use that. But seriously, we have to sort of walk a delicate line here because although race and class clearly have an impact on our children's perceptions and their life chances, we cannot allow these conditions to be an excuse not to educate them. Right. See, it's one thing to understand it. It's another thing to use it as an excuse. But let me just say a minute here, because when I say race and class, I want to be real clear what I'm saying. I am saying that America is not a colorless society or a colorblind society. And the reality is, why would we want it to be? Think about that. Because it's like, you know, I'm telling this story about, I was at Carroll College, and I was the only black student out there for like 3 years. I'm like the first black male to graduate from there. So some of the people who got to know me felt that the greatest honor that they could say to me was to say, Howard, when I see you, I don't see a black person. And when they used to say that, it used to scare the hell out of me, because I used to say, I was like, oh my God, what do you see? If you look at me, you don't see a black person. But see, the thing was, I'm trying to like get them to understand that, hey, to deal with me, you don't have to neuter me. So the real thing is not that I'm black. The question is, what difference does that make?
That's right.
People used to say that what we want in America is like a stew that gets like blended and then you can't like recognize nothing. I'm like, hey, no, I want to see the tomatoes and all that good stuff. You know what I mean? Because I like all of these differences. So I want to celebrate these differences. And that's what we need to do in America. It's not talk about we need to not see color, we need to see it, but it shouldn't define how we relate to each other and what else happens, and we need to appreciate the diversity rather than being afraid of the diversity and try to deny the diversity. But I'll tell you what, class makes a difference in America. See, anybody who tells you that money don't matter, you can rest assured that that's somebody who got money. And there's nobody rolling around America broke. That's talking about how wonderful it is. Rolling around America with no money. That's one of them, you know, on the 99th floor cocktail discussions. While you put your, yes, I just wish for a moment I was poor so I wouldn't have all of the responsibilities I have to take care of my multi-billion-dollar operation. I mean, and but of course you getting high because your driver downstairs. So the reality of it is that money matters, but also matters is how you use the money. So we got to be clear here that race matters in America, money matters in America, and that we got understand how we change the conditions so that those people who don't have money, those people who don't have power, that we find ways to empower them and give them greater control over their lives. But in the final analysis, the point I'm trying to make is we should not pretend that schools can by themselves overcome the horrific conditions faced by our poorest children in this country. And we've got to have legislators understand that, yeah, it's cool and we love you for supporting parental choice, but you can't support parental choice and then vote against everything that helps poor people and say you for poor people. You got to start supporting all of those things that impact on our people's lives. Because if we're going to help our children, we got to help our children's families. And we got to understand that parental choice is only one aspect of what impacts their lives. And we got to talk about all those things that impact their lives on a day-to-day basis. So I love parental choice. I love our organizations. But I love our children more than I love any of that. And so at the end of the day, I'm standing with whatever helps Danny and Bertel and Aisha and Laquita and Lanisha. I'm standing with whatever will make Passion have a better opportunity in her life. I'm standing for what will say that we'll never have Elizabeth ever leave our sight again for 2 weeks and go through what she has just gone through. I'm standing with Ty, and I'm standing with his twin sister. And I'm standing with Xavier, and I'm standing with Stephen, and I'm standing with all of these kids that I know that they can do great things if we just believe deeply in them and give them the opportunity to do what it takes to reach their highest potential. And so I believe what William Daggett said when he said that we must love our children's hopes and our children's dreams and our children's aspirations and our children's prayers more than we love the institutional heritage of the school system. God bless you. Thank you very much.
At one time, you were superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools, but you left that job. What were the circumstances, and would you ever return?
Let me answer the second question first. Never. I have great respect for the men and women who take on those jobs, but I went that way one time in my life, and the way I live my life, I don't go back. And, but the reason why I left was the headline that I got, and every now and then you leave the job and you get the headline that you want. And the headline was, I refuse to die death of 1,000 cuts. And what I was essentially trying to say is that the union had run a group of candidates against things that we wanted to do, things that Susan and many others had helped us craft that we thought would make a difference for the kids. And so we were really poised to begin to do some things because it takes a while to get into a system, especially, I assume most of y'all know that I had never been a teacher or a principal. They had to change the state law to be a leadership. And so I was the first of the so-called non-traditional superintendents in this historical period. I came right before the general. When I went in there, I was not married to anything. I mean, I went in there with like an open mind. I wanted to understand. I wanted to figure out what we could do for kids. It took me a while to really grasp how the system worked. It took me a while to really So by the time I really thought we were poised to really be able to take the next step, they ran a campaign against me. It's based on the fact that, and this is before my wife started working with me, but we had just gone out for a referendum, and we had lost the referendum. We were trying to get to build more schools, and to get kids out of closets, and it was just horrific, and deal with deferred maintenance. And we lost like 3-1, and the taxpayer. I mean, there's a whole story, but I remember one night a lady got up on the south side. You know, Milwaukee's very segregated, so it used to be the south side was like all white, the north side was all black. It's not exactly that way now, but a lady got up, put her finger in my face and told me, we ain't building those schools on the north side for lazy black women on welfare. So it was that kind of, it was interesting, I learned about it. So we lost, and so Edison came to me and said they wanted to operate 2 schools, and this is way back, you know, when Edison first started. And it was really interesting because we did the show, we had them come out, talk to principals, talk to parents, talk to the community, and I asked how many principals were interested. Send me your names, and I will keep it secret. Out of 154 schools, 111 elementary schools, 66 elementary school principals said they wanted to use the Edison model. Edison only wanted to do 2 schools. And so what the union did was they put the dreaded privatization stamp in the middle of my forehead and ran a slate against my efforts to privatize the school system. And they won. And I still had a 5-4 vote, but I was always going to be looking for that 5th vote. And I refused to be an apologist for something that I didn't believe in. And so I had just signed a new contract. And what I did was, I knew we had reached a point where it was going to be a battle between me and the district, I mean the school board, that was not going to be in the best interest of the kids and the taxpayers. So what I did, and my wife did this too when she left, we took the unprecedented step of not demanding that we be bought out since I had just signed a 2-year contract. I simply resigned and only took what was coming to me in terms of vacation that I had, et cetera. Did not ask the taxpayers to give me $400,000 of their money that should have gone to the kids for me leaving. Because I realized that the things that I wanted to do for kids, we were not going to be able to accomplish. And I thought it was simply ethical to say, we're not going to be able to do it the way I want to do it. I'm not going to stand up here every day talking to you all while I'm being cut and bleeding. And so that by the time I finally get ready to leave, I'm going to limp out of here instead of going out on my own terms. And so, I mean, I can give you that's what's the 30,000? There's some more stuff, but that's basically, I mean, I just thought it was time for me to raise up. And, you know, I was in there for 4 years. So.
Howard, I've been listening to you making speeches for going on to 6 years now at different venues, sometimes 50 times a year, and kind of tired. It's amazing to me that you still have that kind of passion. But the speeches don't change a lot. I mean, you're always outraged, and I understand that because I share that outrage. I want to ask you, do you have any optimism?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit about that?
There it is.
Okay.
I mean, seriously, I mean, the optimism that I have is, it's like whenever I go up to the school or whenever I visit schools all around this country, because for 2 years I was an Annenberg Fellow with Debbie Meyer, Dennis Lickey, Ted Sizer, and myself. And all we did was go around the country and visit schools. I went into one school in California where there were 47 different languages spoken. The optimism that I have is in the capacity of our kids. I mean, because I see it in their faces every day. I mean, when I talk to Danny or Patel or Zamir or Stephen or Quayle or Aisha, when I talk to them and I talk to them about what they can read, I see it in their eyes that they understand what it is that I'm saying. So my optimism is in the capacity that our children have. My pessimism is in the lack of understanding and willingness, it's not so much understanding, the lack of willingness on the part of the adults in power to see what I see in their faces and say, no matter what we have to do, we're not going to allow this great potential to go to waste. That's the dialectic that I struggle with every day. And so that's the only thing, honestly, Giselle, that gives me any optimism. And when I go to a place and I see what we can do if there's a group of adults who are totally committed to those kids. And I've gone and I've heard people talk about these parents don't care, blah, blah, blah. The optimism that I have is when I see parents who are living under conditions that many of the people who talk about they don't care couldn't live a day under. And I see them still caring about their kids. I mean, I don't know how else to say this, but my only optimism comes from the people. But those of us who are in power, it's about maintaining power. It's not about radically altering the conditions of the people who need us the most. And you know, you've heard me speak. And so I am always outpitched. But I read a book in the 60s called Black Rage. And what they said was that any black man who was like relatively conscious ought to be in a constant state of rage. And that's me, except as I got older, I've learned how to modify it slightly so that I can just talk to people without them, you know, gathering comes in. But I guess so I can't be any other way, you know what I'm saying? And one of the things that's really worried me, quite frankly, while you're asking this question, is also, I'm getting more pessimistic about in our movement, is that I see a lot of people these days talking about replication and scaling up, and the district is the unit of change and all of this. And I want to be very clear with people that education is about liberation. And since education is about liberation, I've always believed that people who are being liberated have to be a part of their own liberation. And that what we have to do is we got to make sure that as we create quality schools and all of these networks, we can't be all white. We got to have some black people in charge of some of these institutions and networks. And those of you who are giving money out here, you can't keep giving money to all these white people, and you're not willing to give some money to some black people and give black people and Latino people some of the power to begin to control their own destiny, because it is doomed to failure if you don't understand the necessity of the critical involvement of the people who are being served in the process to define their own liberation. And so I politically incorrect and all of that, but I just gotta say that. And one other thing, this has nothing to do with Giselle's question, but you know, they say people ask you a question and you say what you want to say. You try to talk to that question at least for 5 minutes, but you know, like, but this is what it's like the black people in this room, you know, and see, because I believe that when black people get in positions, you can't be just happy to be there. That when we get in position, we gotta prepare to fight, because you know how it is. You get in these big positions, and some of the best positions we ever had. And so you get up in there, and you know, you make it some money for the first time, and this and that. So people come to you and say, hey man, I really want you to help me. You know what? I just got in this position yesterday. Got to give it a little time, so I can really, you know, see what's happening. Then we come back to later on, hey man, I'm about to get a raise, and they're about to move me up, and we get a promotion. You know, come back a little later, because you know, when I get this promotion, I'm gonna be down. Then we come back and see a little bit later and say, hey man, I'm about to retire, so I don't want to mess up my retirement. So there's a certain amount of pessimism that I have because of the class character of this matter. Like for example, somebody asked me once, how come a lot more black legislators, black people are not outraged? In the book you ought to read is The Color of School Reform. Because what it does is you have to understand that in America, a school districts are the entree to the middle class for a whole lot of black people. And so now that they up there in these school districts, you come up here talking about we need to have choice. They'll say, hey, choice. I'm talking about we just got in charge. And so what happens is there's a class dynamic to this battle that we have to more clearly understand. And so what I try to tell people is I'm not telling you to take a vow of poverty to help our kids. I'm just saying, I'm not telling you to be without work. I'm just telling you to work at another place. So that instead of working for others, I told you can work as CEO. You may not be making what you was making, but you're gonna be making enough. We ain't gonna we ain't gonna kick you totally to the curb with no clothes and nothing. So it's these kind of things, that make me pessimistic some days, and then you run into people like Denise and you get optimistic because you see what can be done. So that's a long answer to a very. I'll try to get it short.
My podium is broad and open-ended question, but Marshall Michaels from the African Freedom Foundation in Washington, and we're scheming about how to get you out there. But how do we win? What's your advice to think tanks to win this issue in our states?
Okay, here's the deal. Susan taught me this, so I'm going to give her credit because I steal her stuff all the time. Don't mention it, right? The way that our opponents work is this. The first thing they try to do is to make sure that no bill ever passes. The second thing, if it becomes clear that the bill is going to pass, then let's put caps, let's do all kinds of things that we do. If it still gets through, then let's take it to court. And then if they win in court, let's bring a new spate of regulations and dump those on top of it. Now, what I'm trying to say is the only way we're ever going to win is to understand that we're going to have to fight forever. And you also have to be clear that their objective is not to make these programs better. Their objective is to crush us. So if you weak me, if you, I can't stand controversy. If you that kind of person, what you should do when you get through eating dinner tonight is you ought to raise up and go back to wherever you came from because you're in the wrong room. Because the only way that we're going to win is that we're going to have to fight forever. And we're going to have to realize that we will never have the resources that they have. We got to win. The only way we can win is to understand a couple things. Number one, we on the right side of history on this issue. Number two, that we're going to be like a bulldog tugging at your pants leg. That when I get a hold of that pants leg, I'm not letting go. And then the third thing is you can't be scared. That's a bit off. Yeah, I was in Zambia. Well, this is a side. When we were in New York with Queer and Ishmael last week, I got this thing of taking all the seniors from my school on a trip with me. And so I'm looking for some funding or way to help keep doing this. But we took 4 kids to San Francisco, and we took them to Stanford in Chinatown. 3 of them never been on the plane. Then I took Queer and Aisha to New York last week, and we sit in a big house, and in walked Ludacris. You know what I'm saying? Walked in and we looked at somebody. So anyway, you can feel what I'm saying. So Luke walks into this restaurant, right? So you can imagine these 2 young ladies, Doc, like Ludacris, oh my God, Ludacris. So, so I walked over to him. I said, hey, look, I got these 2 young ladies over there. And they're going crazy, man, because you're in this restaurant. And would you take a picture with him? He was like, hey, I'd be very proud of you, sir. He said, hey, real cool, that. He said, but if I get up right now, it's going to be commotion. So after dinner, he got up and he took a picture. And so we just You want to see a picture of Luther and Korea tonight? You should. Now, what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is that the skirt part, that's the connection. Just where did this all come from? It was really Chingy that said it, but you know, I'm taking a little license here. But it's the whole hip hop dynamic. So you can't be scared, which means you have to be willing to fight. Look, do you think that people are going to say, we've been in control, we are so happy to see those of you who are here who are talking about taking power from us. But you are such nice people, and we enjoy the way that you look and you talk. Here, take this power. It don't happen like that. Frederick Douglass said, and I'm going to sit down, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. And those of us who profess the faith of freedom, but yet deprecate agitation, are people who want the crops without plowing up the ground. We want the rain without the thunder and the lightning. We want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. And this struggle may be a moral one or it may be a physical one, but it must be a struggle. Because power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. And people may not get all that they pay for in this world, but they most certainly must pay for all that they get. Show me the exact amount of wrongs and injustices that are visited upon people, and I will show you the exact amount of wrongs and injustices that are endured by these people. Because these wrongs must be fought with words or with blows or with both. Because the limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. Thank you very much.